What happened that made you realize that these are not my friends? So I was actually afraid of jumping in here only to find isolated incidents or things that are way over the top, e.g. them flirting with your so behind your back, being unable to relate. I'm honestly glad that I found your comment though, because I can relate to this a lot. When I share the things that bring me joy, they're quick to openly criticize said things. Why would anyone buy that? Why do you watch this YouTuber? They suck. They're still making music? Didn't know it was 2004. It made me realize that it's hard to converse with them unless it's about stuff that they ain't. So I'm sorta drifting away from them. I once broke off a 10-year best friendship with someone because I ended up feeling drained and depressed around them. I wanted to move forward in life, whereas they seemed to be stuck in the past more and more. It felt awful to cut ties, since we went through a lot, and I'm sure they didn't mean to be so negative all the time, especially considering they had psychological issues. But yeah, I put ESMUE. Riri. When I grew up and they didn't. Did they die or were they immature? When you feel bad after hanging out with them. IUSED to dread meeting up with a friend. It took me so long to realize why I had snakes in my stomach before and after meeting her. Every part of the conversational load was left up to me, and I felt that she was condescending with it. I tried, but I was the only one trying. When I made it out of the haunted house ride with a different group that I went in with before. Oh, more details please? When your own family member points it out and you actually sit down to think about it, start adding up experiences with that friend, then you know something is wrong with that friend. Yeah, I feel like nobody in my family liked my former best friend, especially my sister. I didn't think too much of it, but in recent years I now realize just how toxic and fake he was. Good riddance, loser. Finding out about a secret group everyone is in except you. Damn, that's gotta hurt. And also friends that are forced to be friends with me because I was the autistic kid. That shit is so annoying. I realized that all they would do is keep me from rising above my situation. They'd try to talk me into calling in sick to work. Always had negative stuff to say when I had to leave work and go to night school. Basically they wanted me to be their security blanket while I tried to be better than I was. That was over 20 years ago. Never looked back after the realization. Not once. I can retire in 4 years. Almost completely debt-free. Still have an auto payment and student loans. Only because I wanted to buy a new car while still working and not being in a fixed income. When I was a kid, I overheard a conversation between these two kids. One of them was this neighbor kid that I began becoming friends with. The other guy was talking about how much of a loser I was. I ran home and never saw them after that. When I was 9 or so, I was having fun at this birthday party until I overheard the birthday girl complaining to her mom about being forced to invite me. It hurts. People like that are assholes. Though, you'll meet better people. When my friend constantly brought me down when I tried to be happy, positive, or share a different side of me, they all came to me when they needed somebody but turned their backs when I needed help. When all I was a taxi and didn't get paid. The reverse for me. I would have been happy to give them a ride for free. Did not expect them to offer to pay to give them a lift on a daily basis. Not operating a taxi here. I get that everyone should keep in mind that you should pay your friends for giving you a ride. But did you ever ask them for gas money? My wife went through this in college. She had a group of friends in her dorm that she thought she was pretty close to. One Friday night, she texted several of them asking if they had plans that evening because she was looking for something to do. You know, no responses from any of them. 3 hours later she gets a call. Hey, so we're all downtown and Catherine got too drunk and really needs a ride home. Could you maybe come get her? Quote, my wife called me sobbing after that happened. I completely felt her pain. Been in that exact spoke before. It's completely heartbreaking when you realize you're being used. Hi mom. I stopped getting fucked up every night and then they stopped fucking with me. Those guys fucking suck. I was only there for them to laugh at. Especially after I had my first seizure, and all they could say to me was, "Seizure monkey." What an awful and inconsiderate experience. They did not deserve to have you as a friend. Hopefully you found some relief from your seizures and are managing okay now. I had one friend who I called from the hospital right after a really bad car accident. She blew me off because she had plans. When I tried to talk to her about the experience later, she told me, "We'd already talked about it, so that should be good enough." Yeah, I came close to dying and had severe PTSD. But all good. Same girl screwed my boyfriend. Go figure. So terrible. I sort of feel you. I have had something similar but not to that extent. It's been 16 years since I talked to that so-called best friend. I dropped them like it's hot. Before that I was in F1. Closing curly bracket. I hope you no longer waste your time on them. Also pray you won't regret time you spent on them, as it's all experience. You learn from them and that experience is also part of you, who you are today. When I was 16 to 19 I was a mall rat. Yeah, I was that kid. And I hung out with a bunch of other mall rats. The first couple years it was fine considering we all acted the same. But then as I got older I saw that none of them really matured. A lot were older than me, with some being in their mid-20s. And a couple being in their 30s, and they were still starting drama with each other that I stopped seeing when I left high school. Some were unable to hold jobs for long, and a few of them were pretty much mooching off parents and friends for a place to live, food, etc. I realized a number of them weren't people that had the ability to grow and were mentally stuck in high school. I didn't want to associate with those types of people, so I left that group. I can't imagine being a mall rat past like 16. What's a mall rat? Our parents and our sisters were friends, and that's how we met when we were 5. He was basically a cousin. His parents basically aunts and uncles. Growing up together was weird because one-to-one or with our families we generally were really good friends. I would regularly get confused and baffled by how unnecessarily awful he would be to me around his other friends or just in class or PT. Don't get me wrong, I was never going to fit in with his friends, but he would sometimes be the one starting the bullshit. I mean, I can almost forgive not wanting to defend me in front of his asshole friends, but the fucker would invite me to a birthday party only to tear me down for talking about anything. Had a bad haircut once. My mom always cut my hair and was usually fine. And it kinda looked like I had a mullet, but it's middle school, so that meant I basically thought I looked like Joe Dirt. Noticed before classes started and laid low all day, trying to just be invisible. It's the last period. I'm on the home stretch, and I confide in him during silent reading time. Can't wait for the day to be over. Literally immediately in a silent classroom announces, "Everybody look, JJAEKKAK has a mullet." Who the fuck does that? I vented to my mom about it because I was just so upset enough. Of course she talks to his mom. Then he goes around to all his shitty friends and bitches about having to apologize. It's weird. We shared so much of our childhood. I never did anything like that to him. He eventually landed in a small tennis class with me and a bunch of my friends. I only ever was nice to him and inclusive. Never felt the need to look cool by being a sack of shit. It honestly wasn't until later in life that I realized he wasn't a friend. He made some really bad decisions that torpedoed his life for a bit, and I think it was when I didn't feel bad for him about it that it finally clicked. Didn't feel happy for him when he got his shit together after the fact. Don't care about anything with him. This one guy the first met through one of my friends was a horrible person. He has stolen cars, punched security guards and once told a girl to kill herself. The few times that I had hung out with him was when I was very lonely, due to a recent breakup. For the first few days it was just fine. I bought him and his friends a drink, he gave me a cigarette, and we just chilling at his. Then came the day when we went behind this building. I think it was some kind of sports building, and him and his friends were using deodorant cans to get high. I'm not going to say how they did it because I do not want anyone to try this. They tried to get me to do some and basically pressured me to do it. I eventually did try it, and it was the worst thing I've ever done. In fact, I'm quite ashamed that I even gave in to the pressure. Although naive me at the time didn't take this as a red flag that I maybe shouldn't be hanging out with these people. And about a day or two later he asked me to meet up in an alleyway. Sketchy as fuck, I know, but I was naive at the time. I went there and met up with him, and he said I need to make a call, and kept on insisting I hand my phone over. At this point I was hesitant because I knew he wasn't trustworthy, so I refused to hand my phone over for some time, but he just kept on pestering me, so eventually I handed it over just to get him to shut up. Obviously he wasn't going to give it back and said I'd have to fight him to get it back. Me being 13 when he was 17, I knew I wouldn't stand a chance, so I said, please just give it back, as if me being polite and using manners would work when the guy was literally a criminal. I never got my phone back, and as a bonus I got beaten up by him and some of his mates. Sorry if this was too long, it's just a story that I think a lot of people could potentially learn from. TLDR, got into the wrong crowd with a shitty person and got beaten up and got my phone stolen when I had been the sole means of housing for a couple of months. But they laughed when I asked for 50 cents for a can of oil for my car. I didn't see them for years after and feel no loss, except for my delusions, when they were talking about people in the group behind their back and they put down others in the group, when they only get a hold of me when they need a favor, when they stopped talking to me, when I left Christianity and suddenly didn't exist to them anymore. Thanks for leaving me completely on my own in a vulnerable mental state, you pricks. Hope your God's worth it. The fact that church hurt has its own term. Sad face. Saw this happen to a good friend of mine too. When he was about 20, he had a few questions around faith which the pastor didn't want to answer. Instead he was kicked out the church, and everyone in the church was told to cut all ties with him cause he's a bad influence. I stopped church soon after that. Too many culty church types do this, not realizing how hypocritical they are. I remember going to a church my bestie had become involved with. It wasn't unlike being checked out by the Children of the Corn. Creepy is putting it mildly. As if Jesus would approve of such shitty treatment. The constant bullying, teasing, and belittling really sealed it for me. She always made me feel like I didn't deserve anyone's time, friendship, love, or consideration. That person was 100% projecting their own bullshit onto you. An astounding amount of people do this without ever realizing it. It was for the best for you to move on, so good on you. I had some friends like that. I didn't even notice until another friend asked why I let them talk to me like that. It opened my eyes, but it took me a while longer to stand up for myself. 18th birthday and no one showed up. Apparently my awful ex had convinced them it would be better to hang out at his place. He is my neighbor. Ouch. I got sober. Congratulations on getting sober. This random internet stranger is proud of you. 3 or 4 years ago I was camping with my best friend at the time and our dads, and he wanted to go fishing, so I went with him, and he got his favorite lure stuck and had to cut it loose, and he went ODPNYOLEE at Mooney Tail RCEL MUMI Mooney CCLEL MESLOR Lima 1 Co MLRO. Going to go crazy over a $10 lure like that. I don't need to be around him, he'll only make my life Worse, when they only reached out to me when they wanted something from me. They made jokes instead of offering any support about my suicide attempt back in high school. I am so sorry you feel the need to end it the way you chose. I pray you no longer feel the need. Also glad you are here to share the experience. Glad you get to see the true color of so-called friend. My house is a non-smoking house. I had my young nieces and nephews over, so I asked my two oldest friends not to smoke in the garden until they'd gone, or to go for a walk if they wanted to smoke. They just shrugged me off and stood right in the back doorway smoking and dramatically saying, "Is this okay, Your Majesty?" and blowing smoke into the kitchen. It might seem small, but it bothered me, and I stopped inviting them over. I realized I was more like their mom, cooking dinner and driving them everywhere while they acted like rats. Hell, fuck not being a friend. You disrespect the rules of my kingdom, you become an enemy, and all niceties go right out the window. I'll mop the floor with someone who does shit like that. 10 months DSO. They were always asking for something and didn't even hang out or do anything in return. They tried to choke my sister. E10 and E11 GR once. The usual, only contacting you when they want something. E had a female friend I met at uni. We even shared a flat together. I kept in touch with her for quite a long time, but realized a couple of years ago that I was the one contacting her, unless she was in town and wanted a place to stay or wanted to be entertained. Eventually I stopped contacting her, and 2 years later I haven't heard one bit from her. Not even a I am. They started doing drugs, smoking, drinking. When you plan a catch up with a friend, they cancel on you, and then you see hanging out with someone else after they said they couldn't make. When they didn't inform me, my girlfriend had been seeing someone else behind my back for over a year. Of course with a friend from our friend group. So I guess they liked them more than me. Also, when they contacted me maybe once a month with a "How are you? Can I ask you for a favor?" Single quote. That whole process of "let me try and act interested in how you've been before I ask you to drive me someplace 5 hours away" really rubs me the wrong way. When they asked me what my name was, I grew up with some guys and we were all close for the longest time, but lately it just seems like they just want to pick on each other for anything and everything. Jokes are one thing, but it feels more like disrespect. If I say anything, then I'm being butthurt, so I don't talk to them nearly as much as I used to. Now they think that I think I'm better than them. When you've known them ever since first grade, then you walk into your GF having fucking sex with Bata at Low 1. Having fucking sex. That's the best kind of sex though. In high school we were 6 friends. 2 dudes. Me and 2 girls. Dude really liked girl 1, but she wasn't interested. However, she was really cruel to him and started doing stuff with other guys to piss him off. From that moment, he slowly started to distance himself from us. Then girl 2 broke with her boyfriend and we kinda started dating. From day one we agreed that we would take things slow and that our friendship came first, but as you may guess, that did not went well. From my perspective, we did this to have a good time and get over our bad breakups. She made me introduce myself to her parents as her BF. She would get extremely jealous if I spoke to another girl, even though I am not the charming type. Get mad if I smoke. Get mad if I drink. Get mad for no reason at all. Her attitude really confused me, because really after all that she did flirt with other guys because we weren't serious. I ended that relationship really fast. Our group dissolved quickly after that, since the only reason I tolerated girl 1 was because of girl 2 and the other 2 dudes were fed up too. XM 2020 and a degree. We were 6 friends, 2 dudes, me and 2 girls. Isn't that 5? When I found out that they were making fun of me together when I wasn't there, I walked in on them laughing about a secret I'd told one of them. In retrospect, it wasn't that great of a secret, because it was just high school. But it really made me realize that I needed to find better friends. If they enjoy your misery rather than having your back and watching out for you. This was when I was way younger and much more insecure. I once had a compromising tear in my jeans, and instead of pointing it out, they were laughing about it behind my back for hours until I realized much later it was a very tiny thing. But it alienated me from them real quick. What can I say? I've major trust issues. That a friend when was a kid, and when I first met him he was cool, and then a few months passed by and he would take money from me and force me to be his friend, and he was way stronger than me, so I just did. And then one day he slept on the streets with me, so I thought he was real, but he would just keep me around for money, then mock me behind my back, and got me into smoking for 1 year. When I stopped, I realized what he was doing, and the only way I could really stop it was to not go out, so didn't leave my house, and he didn't come knocking at my door because I was a 10-year-old kid who was caught smoking, so I stayed inside for months, and it hit me hard. Dude, learn commas. When I told them I'm slowing down on drinking and working on myself, they quit talking to me. I've hung out with them, been invited to hang out with them once since I told them that, and that was 7 months ago. Long story. RCRNARRSE MALEON. Please? She lied about her boyfriend having cancer to get out of my baby shower. She went to a car show. Fiakakes Lomi ML. Mountain LLEMLE Titla. Ace. Me. When there's a worldwide pandemic going on and they don't distance wear masks because it. CECOLRAA. I lost my job a few years ago, got super depressed over it, and eventually lost my home as well. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so my monthly medical expenses are pretty high without insurance. People just stop responding. I was never asking for anything. I was just seen as less than. It was sobering. I don't really do friends anymore aside from online here and there. They were intentionally being cunts to me, and I decided to give them a foo and KA. I loved that you censored the fuck but not the cunt lol. They would make up elaborate lies to tell me and laugh about it behind my back. On one of my birthdays they were supposed to come pick me up from a Christmas party. They did not show up at the allotted time, and after multiple calls someone finally picked up their son. When I said, "What the hell? It's my b-day and you didn't come get me," the response was, "Are you going to be mad about it all night?" Quote. I instantly realized that the best I could expect was a good time, because that's all that mattered to them. It worked out okay. I had lots of fun, but I never let them pass the wall after that, nor relied on them again. It was my first lesson in knowing who you're dealing with and deciding what level of trust you place in them. Another was a best friend who left me in a bad situation, and I got hurt. When the truth came out later, she blamed me. I wasn't looking to place blame, otherwise I would have told her right away. And it hurt that she essentially kicked me when I was down. That relationship had no level where it could continue to function. Complete cancel. A tendency to want to rush over and tell me whatever shit was talked about me, or whatever given thing I otherwise wouldn't have known about or cared about had happened. I'm not saying there isn't a time or place, but if it's a constant thing, that person likes keeping you off balance and stirring up trouble, that they used me for their own good. That's how. When I had been diagnosed with a chronic illness, AD, got severe depression over it, but was the asshole for not wanting to do a 6-hour train ride alone and then find them at 11 p.m. at night in a completely unknown place to me. I could barely get to the corner shop and was signed off work FFS. I went on a bachelorette vacation with a group of girls that I was pretty new to. They all had been friends for a long time, grew up together. Every girl cheated on their spouse, so making out on the dance floor, bringing guys back to the room, etc. I realized they basically use each other for cover and keep each other's infidelity a secret. I could not believe these girls had so little respect for their partners. I was told I needed to lighten up, and they did. This was all in good fun. I realized right away this was not a group of girls I wanted in on. Still friendly with them because of our husbands, but I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. Did you tell their husbands? I would have, ha ha ha. When they became friends with my bully. When I realized that insulting each other was the only way we could communicate. They constantly made rude white jokes around and about me, but at the time I just shook it off. Then they started saying more stupid shit about US people in the EU and how white people are the curse of the human race, and so finally just said, "Fuck you all," and left. One of them tried messaging me for money because they were depressed and suicidal, and I just blocked them. When I realized I was always the one initiating the conversations after being cancelled on twice, where I had made full meals for my friends, I decided to give up starting conversations and haven't heard from any of them in over a year. When my best friend was talking about how cool her birthday party was going to be, and then dated my crush from kindergarten that I still liked in 8th grade that she knew about. I was always the weird kid in the group. They are pretty nice people, but I just don't hang with them. When they would steal from me. When I noticed they were constantly talking about other friends being problematic and canceling people for stuff I knew they also did. When I realized I couldn't ever be around them sober. And when I realized I was constantly watching my back to make sure I didn't get dragged or canceled for something stupid. When you've got a big house, so naturally everyone is always over all the time. You're expected to host everything, even volunteered at times, but they never really cared to appreciate it and took all a Salmili 1 nanoliter air. When all the 8 girls, 9 girl group, hated each other and they came to me to bitch about the other 7 girls in the 9 girl GRP, I was the one they came to bitch at the other 7 girls. I had a group of friends who insisted you can get anywhere by bike or transit, so none of them even had licenses. Never mind cars. They are pretty much the annoying type of cyclist who break all Nin Avenue. They would invite me to go drinking, but since I was the only driver, I suggested we go earlier so I could drink too and get home before transit shut down for the night. I was never invited again. Looking back, they were always the first to bum rides even if we were going somewhere within the city. Good riddance. When I realized this friend always puts others down for various reasons, like someone's economic background, the college someone graduated from, the clothes they wear, their pronunciation of a foreign language, and so on. When they said, "Who the heck are you? No one invited you to the lunch table." The way they reacted around the acquisition of money, when none of them believed that their gay friend was a sexual assaulting puss. I gave them everything I can to show my support, but at times all I would get was a greeting back. Normally the one people remember when they need something. When they slapped my face and it left a red mark, I had a moment of realization. I saw some strangers in the park and thought I knew them. Turned out I didn't. They told me they'd be there no matter what. They told me they'd go to a psychologist with me. But they started ignoring me. Now they're talking bad about me, and I think one of them might even tell other people about my self-harm and my suicidal thoughts. When your supposed friends invite you to the movies and to go eat CC's beforehand, and when you get there they ignore your calls and say, "YTF, did you come? We were having a sleepover middle school age. We were saying what animal each girl would be. Stuff like cat or horse or whatever." When they got to me they said I'd be a worm, and then laughed so fucking hard about it. The starkest time I remember cutting off a friendship was when I discovered that he found it entertaining to annoy people. He considered it trolling, but he did it in real life. To his friends. Constantly. In a completely uncreative way. I told him to stop multiple times, and after doing it for several days, I made an abrupt decision to not talk or hang out with him anymore. They made racist jokes about my new Indian friends. He hasn't bullshitted me publicly even once since we became friends. I'm suspicious. When their parents wanted me to work under the table for minimum wage during a goddamn pandemic. Oh, and to top it off, all I had to do was run an entire department myself. Good foo **ing. Life faux tale. When the people I was hanging out with told me that I was a little bit fat to be hanging out with them, and then they just tried to control my diet and they would ask me if I would eat stuff. Yeah, just really toxic. Well, that hasn't happened to me, but it has happened to someone else, but I don't think they ELT. This girl has some food, and two girls come up to her and start chatting and eating her food. The exact moment the food was all eaten, they left. Other things like this happen as well. Every day they would ask her for money, and she would give them it. The using hasn't stopped, and of course I have told the girl that they were using her, but she kept saying I am jealous of their friendship. I had a friend who I had been going to fairs and lunches with, and was a fun person to hang with. Then she started spouting anti-Semitic ideas. Because I'm not Jewish, she thought this was okay. I ghosted her, and she still doesn't know why. She refuses to admit that she's racist. I don't know if it's okay to say this, but those comments really comfort me as I'm having a rough time with my friendship. I feel like I'm not alone. She would only turn to me when her life sucked and she needed emotional support. When we met, she never listened and just talked. I learned that when she calls or messages me, that means that I'll have to listen to some BS drama again. She was never there for me when I needed it. Even if I called her and tried to talk about it, it would emuivo. UNTE. Leola. LA. 0A. Also, her friend group just sucked. They love to discuss other people. People from their group were the favorite topic when they were absent. And the things they said were so nasty. I imagined what they said about me and just slowly faded away from the group. When he felt the need to bang any girl I was interested in and or showed interest in me, sometimes by force. One of my friends literally became some sort of crime boss in 4th grade. That is one girl in my class and we were never that close. One day I watched one anime on TV, and since I knew she liked anime I went and talked to her about it. We then became really close friends and we would tell each other everything and we would do everything together. We could talk on the phone for 3 hours straight, mostly about her stuff. Eventually some of my other friends pointed out, "You are like her dog. She has you on a leash." But I minimized it. At the time she would get angry if I spent too much time with others instead of her during lunch breaks and then would not talk to me for 2 days. I had to go and apologize. I started spending all my time with her, and she managed to isolate me from anyone else. We would mostly talk about stuff she liked, and if I tried to change subject or talk about something else I liked and she didn't, she would shut me off. But I minimized it. When we got to high school we went to the same school but different classes. Again we would have to spend every break together and I wasn't able to get to know my new classmates and make friends. She then got into Twitter, made new friends who she could relate more with. We became strangers. She wouldn't even speak to me, but I still had to go meet her. Every breaker she would get angry. In those breaks I would try to start a conversion. She would look at me, roll her eyes, and get back on Twitter. I would notice she was playing some game on her phone and ask what game she was playing and she would say, "It has nothing to do with you." At this point I knew she couldn't possibly care for me like I did for her. She had a rough life and stayed with her out of pity. She wasn't my friend. After 6 years feeling isolated I managed to free myself from her. I now realize that I've been so isolated and my social interactions so limited to her that I can no longer make friends or socialize with anyone I am no comfortable with. To this day I resent, i.e. This one girl, a year ago or two, she changed. In video games she would troll people and moan in the mic in game chat. I thought it was fucking disgusting. We only talk for streaks now. My friend had diabetes. It's serious and all, I totally get that. But that year we were friends was the worst for my health. I was in the process of getting a tumor removed from deep inside my shoulder muscle and getting it biopsied from cancer. In the process of getting diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I was also going through the worst bit of my diagnosed depression, anxiety disorder, and having to confront my PTSD. I understand that diabetes is totally life-threatening, but when I was breaking down crying of my fear of having cancer, at age 12 might I add, she completely ignored the fact I was sobbing and said something like, well, that will only be temporary, I will have to see doctors forever. And any other time I brought up my own health, which was rarely, she always brought up her own health and brought attention to herself. She was so narcissistic and it just wouldn't end, so I stopped hanging out with her. I physically couldn't give her any more of my already minimal mental energy. They basically hung around this wall all the time, acting like they were in a fraternity. They never wanted to find dates, and would just sit around sharpening their swords. One of them seemed pretty cool for a while, and we eventually bailed on the rest of the group. But he started banging his aunt, whom I later found out killed my father and brother. So I'm not sure he was all that cool. In retrospect, when they're out of town and you haven't seen them for years, and when they come back for a few weeks, they promise they really want to hang with you. Fast forward a month later, and you find out from mutual friends that they already came and left and hung out with everyone else but you. It sounds kind of stupid, but basically I remember eating lunch with all my friends, and someone knocked over my water bottle and a bunch of water spilled everywhere. Instead of helping me, my friends just completely ignored me, and while that was going on, a bunch of other kids who saw started making fun of me, and some kid even threw his trash at me. It made me really sad that the people I thought were my friends didn't even help me clean up and didn't even stand up for me. I ended up ditching the rest of school after that and almost jumped off a bridge, but decided against it. I've cut those people out of my life, and even though I have no friends, I am so much happier. Tricked me into drinking from a glass they had put their dicks in. One of my better friends took the GF of one of my and his best friend. I was in the first year of my knowledge. I entered college and made friends with some classmates. In our group, there were 7 people including me, 2 girls and 4 boys. Everything was going smoothly. One of the girls had a sister-like bond with me and the other one liked me. We all hanged out and chilled together. 2 of the boys disliked me and others pretended to be nice on my face, which I was too stupid to realize. I always thought they are just being friends and nothing more. They all liked the girl who liked me. This continued for like 4 months, and after a lot of subtle hints by her and a lot of gifts and booze by them, I and she came into a casual relationship, which was enough to hurt their egos. Not all of them were completely bothered, since from the day she met them and the day she got into a relationship with me was long enough to make 2 of them, who pretended to like me but weren't passing comments on me, forget her completely and move on. She enjoyed the time. We went out twice a week and spent a lot of time together. I actually felt something there, but at that point in time, I was also a provider for my family and already emotionally destroyed by my father's untimely death. I wasn't a sole provider. My mother worked too, but whatever I earned was support for my younger brother so he could continue schooling. I earned via teaching students, doing side projects, and helping odd jobs. A lot of people in my college were rich, like high-class rich, and I went up there by busting my ass and earning a scholarship. I was generally not invited to parties, night outs, because I won't be able to afford them, and even when I was invited I had to pull out some whack-ass reason to not join them. because I was a person who had to wait in bus pass line for 3 hours just to save $100 per month. She was from a family where money was and will never be a problem. Her father was a contractor for iron used in railway tracks, so they earned round the clock. She wanted me to be serious with her. I resisted for few weeks, but then she challenged me that I am a coward who wants to be emotionally insulated. I felt that she might be right, and I decided why not give it a shot. For the next 2 months we spent a lot of time being serious. We planned out our future, how we will stay together after college, and how we will manage, because I wanted to do a startup and she wanted to be fashion designer. We just agreed we will figure it out. After those 2 months, she abruptly called me one day and told me let's break off. I thought she might be joking, or those two fuckers said something to her. I tried to reason with her, but she ended my call saying, "It's not the same as before." I was broke by this. I was left alone. I started lamenting and blaming myself. I didn't go to college for a month. Meanwhile, all of them continue their life together and just spread enough lies about the breakup in the college that when I came back I was bombarded with questions like, "Hey man, why did you cheat on her?" Quote, "Do you have a small cock?" Quote, "What's your weird fetish that bugged her off?" Quote, I literally had an anxiety attack the next day. I didn't sleep for the next 10 days wondering, what's wrong with me and how will I survive? By this time I realized that none of them were my friends and they all played with me. I never got to know why she broke up with me, but the way she still walks in the college tells. Pucra Amy Arui. After that, I started thinking critically and not let my insecurities came into play. They are still chilling out and spreading rumors about me while I have had 3 solo trips, met my co-founder, and did 2 failed startups, and now the 3rd one makes us money. And yes, I am still in college, but now in 4th year. When the bullying got so intense that they told me I should kill myself, and that moving high schools gave me a massive sense of relief. I quickly made some new friends, and for the first time in my life realized what true friendship was. I'm still friends with most of them today, even though it's been 9 years since we graduated. When they know me only when they need me, that sums it up. When you see them talking about a topic that you know, so you try to join the conversation, but they say you know nothing about it and you're just going to waste our time, so leave. I ended up doing about a year in prison and none of them wrote or contacted me. After I got out, they acted like friends again, but after that I knew they weren't really there when I needed them. They decided that they'd happily ask everyone else in the group but me if they were free to go to a ROAAYA. When they stopped at the microwave in the cafeteria so I could heat my food up only to leave me. Them MN Laco HLs literally forgot about me. I joined the army out of high school. After basic 8, I was back home for a week before I went to my duty station. I picked up a friend I had since we were babies to hang out. I picked him up at the hospital, and after driving across town he began acting strange. He said we was being followed and wanted me to lose them. I still drove normally but began taking side streets and went down an alleyway in order to humor them. We finally stopped out in the country and he takes out a bag of meth and begins doing it. I am floored and tell him to finish because I am taking him home. I pull up to his place and he gets out. And before I get more than 1 block away I see a bunch of police cars swarm his house. He stole a few purses at the hospital and someone was actually following us. He got arrested for theft, and when they raided his house found meth and other things. He went to prison. The only thing I could think of was that if the cops would have stopped him while he was still in my car, what would have happened? Would they have charged me with a crime? If they did, it would have got me dishonorably discharged and would have drastically changed my future. I never had anything to do with him after that. I also dropped a few others who went down a Similar path. It's been 20 years since I left and haven't been back once. My family moved soon after I left, so I see no reason to ever go back. They all pulled out AK-47s when they all RSVP'd to my 21st birthday, but nobody showed up or apologized. It was years ago now, and hindsight is great. I'm better off without them. My underage friend drank beer like it was nothing at a sleepover while me and the boys just watched with dread. In light of recent events, it clicked to me that one of my friends who I had known for years was not only narcissistic but also genuinely a racist. He's made offensive jokes before. I shrugged them off as jokes. When he started saying protesters deserve to get shot, that white lives matter too, that he wouldn't talk to someone if they were darker than his coffee, and that they should just go back to their own country if they don't like it here. I just couldn't bring myself to continue being friends with someone that has so much hate inside of them. They slowly dropped off when I started to put weight on. Took my schizophrenia meds. When her dad disparaged me for getting education in front of her, and she just behaved like nothing happened. To say that I had a proper friend that stayed a while is a complicated statement. Many people came and left, but the most recent one was with a guy the first had a crush on, but we were friends. He would text me when he needed help in class. We are both in college in the same major, so we shared some classes. And then complains about his life until later on, suddenly out of nowhere mentions that he has a girlfriend and starts complaining to me about his problems and asking me for help to aid their relationship. The moment hit me hard that I stopped texting first, and surprise. Summer is here and no one is asking about me. Whenever they will, whenever we were